Hello everyone, my name is Cesar Rondina. Welcome to 2020. Happy New Year. You know, all the salutations of the season. I can't speak for you, but I could tell you I'm really kind of overhearing Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. But I wanted to extend those greetings to you, and I want to welcome any newcomers that are starting to follow my blog for 2020. We had a great 2019, and hopefully we'll build on that for 2020. Tonight we're going to talk about the topic of writing a little bit. But before we do that, I just want to kind of bring you up to speed a little bit about our plans for 2020. Normally I publish 3 to 4 books a year, but there's going to be a lot of life changes for me this year in 2020. Anybody who's followed me for any length of time knows that I absolutely adore and love boating. I love the marina lifestyle. I love the boating lifestyle. So I've decided to make 2020 my year to relocate. So this year I'll be relocating to Florida, hopefully in the next 3 to 4 months. I've been flying back and forth looking at boats and just waiting to find that right one, because I plan on living on one for a few years and doing my writing from there, and doing some traveling up the west coast of Florida and down to the Keys and so on and so forth. So because of that, I'm only going to be doing 2 books this year. And you know, all my other books, you could look and see what they are on my website, which you're obviously now on. But I came up with the idea of a private investigator series. I've always wanted to write a private investigator series. So most of my 2019 was spent, you know, planning and deciding the concept I wanted to do. And I came up with one that I'm pretty excited about. And that's what I'll be focusing on. So in 2020, I'll be only publishing 2 books. The PI series, as you can see, the book in the background, is called From the Axe Diaries. The first book, which will be coming out in late spring, early summer, is called Trapped in Revenge. And the second book will be coming out late fall, early winter. And that'll be also from the Axe Diaries series, Descent of Fury. So that's what's coming for me in 2020. So it's going to be a pretty exciting year. Doing 4 books in 2019 just inundated me with book promotions, traveling, and so on and so forth, that I just need to cut back in 2020 with all the other things that are going on in my life. I hope all of you have some exciting plans for 2020 and that you have an exciting and prosperous year. Let's get to the subject of what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, which is writing. I was honored at the end of 2019. I've said this, you know, many times, that I'm a contributing answer man, if you want to call it that, on Quora.com. And they branded me and gave me my own site, if you want to call it. I'm not sure exactly what they call it. You know, and I really didn't realize how many answers I contributed to over 2019, which was in the thousands. You know, you don't look at what you do on a daily basis, but when you see this massive number over a period of time, you say, wow, I don't remember doing all of that. But because of that, and the high number of my answers that were upvoted, they've kind of put me into a little special category, which is pretty cool, and I'm kind of proud of that. I believe in education. I've been an educator for 20 years, so I love to answer any questions about writing. And one of the biggest questions I get is, how do I get started? How do I get past writer's block? So on and so forth. So I did want to talk a little bit about the process of writing and what it means, and a little bit about how it's changed. You know, many years ago, depending on what you're writing, whether it's a topic for academia, where things need to be perfectly structured, sci-fi, fiction, nonfiction, depending on the genre, you have a lot of leeway as to how you can write. And obviously your editor is going to be a great contributor to how your story structure takes place when it's over and done with. But the process, and that is the vast majority of questions that I'm asked, probably to the tune of about 68%, because I also get many questions through this website. And that is, how do I get started in writing a book? Well, you know, everybody has a different way that works for them. I'm sure if you were to speak to Stephen King, James Patterson, 2 of the greats, you might find that their ways are totally different, and they've been doing it for so many years and so many decades that it just might come natural for them. But to the new aspiring writer, this is a huge challenge. So I want to explain the process that I think works the best. And, I do a lot of volunteer work with writing classes and at the high school level, because I believe our youth, and I truly believe this, that our youth is our future. So I like to spend as much time as I can with young people trying to help them and guide them. And what I have found that works the best is first develop your concept idea for your story. What is your story going to be? What do you want to write about? If you don't know what you want to write about, you just can't sit down and write a book. It doesn't work that way. Now, you could write off of a plan. You could write on the fly if you want. Just kind of write as you go. The problem with writing as you go is I find that your thoughts become very scattered. Your story doesn't really follow a good storyline. It's very hard to develop subplots and additional characters, and it makes it extremely difficult when you tie all of these people back in together. Because every subplot you write within your main storyline and every character you develop at some point in time has to tie in. So here's what works. And we're going to kind of make this short and sweet because it doesn't need a lot of elaboration. Come up with your storyline, come up with your idea. And the next thing that I do, and write that down, by the way, write everything down, all your thoughts, because you're going to need to refer to them. The next thing I do is come up with a title for my book. And the reason I come up with a title for the book is because it helps to keep you focused on what your storyline is going to be about. Plus, it also helps you to start to develop the advertising and marketing plan, because all the experts say, and I found for myself it's true, that when do you start advertising and promoting your book? The day you start writing it. Okay? You need to get that title out there. You need to get that thought in people's mind. So come up with your title. The next thing I do that works for me is I have my graphic designer come up with the book cover. And I may look at multiple different book covers, but before I decide on the one that I like, because the book cover has to be catchy, has to be eye-catching, I should say, and it has to depict to some degree what the story is going to be about. So these are all forms of inspiration. I'm very fortunate to have multiple monitors, so a lot of times, as I've said in the past, when I write, I'll have the book cover up. I may even play some music in the background if you're the type that could do that and concentrate. That revolves around the type of story, the story that I'm writing. Helps to inspire. The next thing that I do is I name my chapters. And the reason I do that is it helps give structure to the book. It helps to make the book flow. It helps to keep my ideas flowing. So when I think about my story as a whole and what the story is going to be, then I break that story down into concepts which I call my chapter names, and then I start writing my story. Now, that's one way that works for me. I promote that to a lot of kids in writing classes, and I've seen that their stories develop and get so much better over time when there is some type of structure to follow. So my take-home message for this quick little blog post for the first one of 2020 is think structure when you think writing. And, I don't care whether you've been writing for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, until writing becomes second nature for us. And I pose this question to you, no matter how experienced of a writer you are, does writing ever become second nature? Maybe some might say yes. I think the answer is no, because every story is different, every idea is different, every concept is different, therefore how you approach it becomes different. So there's really never a second nature standard, okay? So I always like that formula. So let me recap it before we call it a night. First, come up with your idea, write it down, come up with your title, develop your book cover. These are your forms of inspiration that you're going to refer to. Next, Outline your story as a concept, how you want the story to flow, what your subplots may be, all your different characters. And in my blog post, my written blog post last week, we talked about naming characters. Naming characters is very important. Those I do on the fly. I name characters as I go, but I choose those names very wisely. Then name your chapters. That will help to keep your story flowing and help to keep you on target. Now, once that is all done, then you have what we call your initial draft, your initial manuscript. That doesn't mean it's written in stone. You're going to do many rewrites. You're going to change things along the way. Your editor's going to make recommendations to you, so on and so forth. And that's okay, because the main structure will be there. So I hope this has given you a little insight about getting started with your writing project, and I wish you all the best for 2020. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.